Right, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this session on open access mega journals. I'm Stephen Pinfield, I'm Professor of Information Services Management at the University of Sheffield in the UK, and I'd like to give you a very warm welcome to this session. It's a real pleasure for me to introduce our three speakers, who I will ask to speak for 10 minutes each, and we'll go straight on with the presentations and then have a Q&A at the end. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Dr. Simon Wakeling, Research Associate at the University of Sheffield, one of my colleagues. And between us, Simon and I are going to introduce some of the findings of a project that is ongoing at the University of Sheffield and Loughborough, looking at open access and mega journals. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Jörg Haber of PLOS. He is Editor-in-Chief of PLOS One and previously Executive Editor of Nature Communications. And so he'll be bringing to bear extensive experience about mega journal publishing as well as scientific publishing in general. And finally, I'd like to introduce Professor Peter Suber of Harvard University. Peter is a world-leading expert on open access. He's been active in the open access movement for over 20 years and has been involved in major policy development as well as being responsible for authoring a number of seminal texts on open access. And Peter is going to reflect for us on a number of the issues that are raised in this session as a way into the Q&A, and I hope very much that you'll participate in that towards the end of this session. So without any further ado, let me start off by beginning to communicate some of the issues that have been raised by the research project that we're working on at Sheffield and Loughborough, focused on mega journals. Now, one of the first things that's interesting about the mega journal phenomenon is the amount of controversy to which it has given rise. And you can see here some of the quotations from the social media discourse as well as publications, where there are real dichotomous views being expressed. Some people seeing mega journals as exemplifying the future of scholarly communication, maybe even the best form of scientific communication. And yet others seeing mega journals as a dumping ground for lower quality content, a cash cow for publishers, and dispensing with some of the valuable filtering that has been provided by selective journals. So that in itself gives us an interesting subject, if you like, for research, and that's what we've been looking at in our project. Now, the first issue that you have to confront in relation to mega journals is defining what you're talking about. And although definitions differ, they tend to converge on these four major characteristics. Fully open access publication, normally with what's called in the literature a moderate APC. Then large scale, or at least aiming for it. Scientific Communications and PLOS One are now the largest journals globally. Then a wide scope, with mega journals covering the entirety of a discipline or maybe even several disciplines. And then, perhaps most controversially, a particular approach to quality control, characterized normally by soundness-only peer review. So ignoring issues such as novelty or significance of the findings, which are often seen as more subjective judgments, and focusing just on the technical soundness of the study. And it's these characteristics which are a departure from journal publishing as it has been, certainly for the last 50 years, which has perhaps given rise to such controversy. So we're looking at this phenomenon in 5 major research phases, 3 of which are now complete in terms of analysis. We've published on the first 2. So the first one was a review of the research literature as well as the social media discourse on mega journals. We published an article about that earlier this year. And then a bibliometric study of mega journals, who's publishing in them, who's quoting them, and so on. Then there are 2 qualitative phases to our research. First of all, interviews with publishers and editors of mega journals, and Simon's going to be talking us through the results of that particular phase. And then also focus groups of scholars from various disciplinary backgrounds, and we're analysing the data from that phase at the moment. Our fifth phase, which is an author survey, we've literally just closed the survey about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I'm really pleased to say that we got well over 11,000 responses. So we're processing the data at the moment, and we hope to put that together in a paper in the near future. So with that introduction to the project, what I'm going to do now is hand over to Simon, who's going to talk us through the phase of publisher interviews. Simon.